everyone, I'm Charting Man Dan with the chart, guys. My face is supposed to be big. We're going to check in on Bitcoin. Daily bounce underway. Altcoins, a little bit of strength today. Certainly a one-off at the moment. Bulls hoping that becomes the norm. We'll check in on Ethereum that's holding on pretty well. The most likely scenario on some crypto stocks we're keeping an eye on. But first, it's all about Bitcoin. So, Bitcoin is getting help from the NASDAQ bulls. And I can say that because we started the week weak. And granted, bulls are doing something themselves. Bitcoin bulls defended the low at 103. But I can say that they're getting help because, again, you look at the NASDAQ. This is the 2 days to start the week. Very strong green candles, almost green Marabozu, which means the bulls control the entirety of the day. You look at the 15-minute. It's just a grind up for 2 days in a row at this point. Just 15-minute uptrends. And so with that, obviously, that helps other asset classes. Right now, QQQ is at the highest level that it's seen in 3+ months, 2+ months. The NASDAQ still has to break the futures resistance, but again, strong start to the week and maintaining the daily uptrend. So Bitcoin started the week with a potential daily bear flag. We bounced. Yesterday, we dropped right back down to the lows, and the bulls defended it. So the big question that we have from here is, are we going to see weekly consolidation? And we know that the next time we see it, it's not going to surprise us at all because we've gone straight up with a higher low every single week for the last 7 weeks. But again, bulls are defending that stair step at the moment. And you'll find oftentimes, if you're zoomed in, being more focused on day trading often, I will see a stair step pattern on the 5 or 15-minute time frame, and you do see the bulls defend the stair step. They don't want to lose that pattern of a higher low every single candle. And so that is what the Bitcoin bulls are doing. And so we are either going to recover with a 50% plus bounce retracement and create the space for a daily higher low next consolidation to try and see continuation, or this is still a potential bounce that rolls over to a lower low. If you look at the 4-hour time frame, we can draw an uptrending resistance line as a bit of a visual guide. You could draw an uptrending support line as well if you want. It's a bit rising wedgy in the sense that you break resistance straight into a pullback, you break resistance straight into consolidation, you break resistance straight into consolidation. So it's the lack of bull break follow through that has us look for a potential rising wedge. And so we will be keeping an eye out. Is this a 4-hour rising wedge to set atop of this bounce? So that's the most important thing for me into tomorrow. Because knowing this is the 4-hour time frame, this pattern is going to resolve itself within the next 24 hours. We're either going to break bull or break bear from these trend lines. And so that is my top watch. We could say we have relative weakness to the NASDAQ. And it's glaring right now. I mean, we topped out at 1130. We've been dropping ever since then. QQQ is still just going up. It started 15-minute consolidation now, but they're doing different things at the moment. So if we look at Bitcoin divided by the NASDAQ, we will see overall weakness over the last week and a half. We've been relatively weaker. So we'll keep an eye on that. And so how does that help us? Well, if the NASDAQ shows us signs that it's weakening, if the NASDAQ futures chart fails the recent high, let's just go to the 12-hour. So if we were to fail this recent high and then tighten up in an equilibrium, again, there's no sign of it, but if that were to happen, then Bitcoin's likely going to head back down and test 63,000 with the way that we're currently positioned. Obviously, the Bitcoin bulls would love to see NASDAQ futures break to the higher high and try and help the Bitcoin bulls get back up towards 108,000. Again, the goal, best case for the bulls would be a solid leg up to create the space for a daily higher low, almost like a daily inverse head and shoulders. An inverse head and shoulders is a reversal pattern, but you will find plenty of times where it shapes up as a consolidation pattern before continuation. But you need another leg up on Bitcoin to create that space for a potential right shoulder to form. So the way that I'm approaching this is Again, and this is why, you know, the most often reason that you'll be arguing with someone on social media about a chart is you're talking about different time frames. Is Bitcoin bullish or bearish? Well, are you on the 5-minute time frame or the weekly time frame? They're very different. So if I'm at the weekly time frame, my mindset is burdens on bears. The bears have to prove to me that weekly consolidation is underway by losing the pattern of a higher low every single week. If I'm on the daily chart, the burden's on the bulls. Why? Because we are in a daily downtrend. That was a lower high and lower low. And on this current bounce, we may just be forming another lower high. So I need to see the bulls prove to me another leg up, as I just mentioned. So again, it depends on what time frame you are focused on as far as your approach. As far as crypto stocks are concerned, it's a little bit tricky with where we stand. Why? Because most crypto stocks, all crypto stocks, have weekly consolidation underway. And I can look at this. Well, MSTR already set the weekly higher low, so that helps. But we know a weekly higher low is the most likely scenario. But what makes you hesitant as a bull is these names were relatively weaker. They started weekly consolidation weeks ago. What if Bitcoin were to start weekly consolidation on Thursday? Just throwing that out there. If that were to happen, we would anticipate the crypto stocks obviously would be negatively impacted. So it's almost like if you're going long the crypto stocks for the most likely scenario of a weekly high or low, you're anticipating that Bitcoin is going to fend off weekly consolidation. So on MSTR, again, very similar daily chart to Bitcoin, but bulls are getting to the point where they're creating some space for a daily high or low. So you can justify being long some of these crypto stocks because we have space to work with, just need to be a little bit protective. You know, my ideal scenario would be if Bitcoin breaks 103,000, starts weekly consolidation, we hold 100,000 psychological, we get zero bear follow through, we then start talking about a weekly bull flag. And in that scenario, yeah, we might pull back a bit with Bitcoin when we break 103, but we hold the low and then confirm a daily uptrend. That would be an ideal scenario. So you look at the weekly charts for MSTR, and the weekly higher low is now set, so 358 is a key support, and there has been a little bit of relative strength over the last few days. You look at MARA, again, same thing. We're scouting a weekly higher low, CLSK. We know these names have been much weaker overall, but this is the bulls trying to shape up the first weekly uptrend in a bunch of months. So we'll see if they can pull it off. Coin, another one. That's a weekly bull flag unless proven otherwise. So I still like MSTR and Coin better on their weekly charts. Again, past couple streams I've been watching. Are miners going to get their rotation? And they've gotten rotation in little one-off spurts. Big rotation day here. Zero follow-through. I've got to see the follow-through in that rotation. Not just a one-off, one-day thing. And that's what we've been seeing in altcoins. Like today, altcoins are stronger than Bitcoin today, but it's not a consistent pattern that lasts days in a row. It's generally a one-day thing that has to change. We got to see consistency. So I'm still skeptical of the miners. I am still watching Coin and MSTR as stronger charts, but again, this Coin weekly chart, like MSTR, both are just fine. And again, it's that thing where you show me these charts by themselves, great healthy consolidation. You show me them with the context of Bitcoin, I say, okay, but we just have to be cautious if Bitcoin were to start weekly consolidation. But an aggressive bull is just playing off the levels of these stocks and not caring about Bitcoin until 103 breaks. And then we take it from there. Obviously requires a little bit more gung-ho type of mindset. Dominance chart. If you're an altcoin bull, you are hoping and praying that a weekly lower high is going to form on this dominance chart. And again, we've been pulling back the last couple of days. What does that mean? Okay, I know what Bitcoin's been doing the last 2 days. It's been a daily bounce attempt. So if the dominance chart is dropping, that means the altcoins are bouncing more significantly than Bitcoin on the daily charts. So we're going to keep an eye on this. And again, we haven't seen a significant shift, and we've got to set a weekly lower high if we're going to start getting a little bit more confident that alts may be getting a turn here. ETH is holding on well. Again, it's the same thing. You can always see two sides of the coin. Could this be a head and shoulders? Absolutely. If Bitcoin's going to roll over and break 103 and head towards 100,000 in weekly consolidation, then ETH is going to set a daily lower high and head back to its support base. So bulls got to be cautious of the potential of a head and shoulders. But the simple statement is, if ETH holds 2460, bulls keep full control. And after a big breakout, bulls will take sideways consolidation. Sideways consolidation cools off RSI. It allows EMA supports to catch up, and it's digesting the new price range. So you got supply and demand are equal here as we go sideways. You then get a huge spike in demand exceeding supply. We shoot up 50% or whatever it was, and now we're doing the same thing again. Okay, the scales are starting to balance back out as we digest in a sideways range. Obviously, best case scenario for bulls is the sideways range, then breaks bull again and gets another leg up. But what we need to see is ETH BTC break bull as well. One red flag that Ethereum saw back here, again, when you're in the spotlight, you want to see, keep repeating myself, this is a very important point if you are trading altcoins, you want to see the BTC pairing version of your altcoin either leading, breaking to higher highs first, or doing the exact same thing as the US dollar version. When it's doing something different, it's a red flag. So here is ETH USD breaking to a higher high with no follow through. And when it did that, ETH BTC did not break resistance. That's an initial little red flag that can fire in your brain and say, be cautious. This is not an ideal scenario for bulls. This bull break might not see follow through because we cannot break to an ETH BTC higher high. At this point, I'm just viewing this as an equilibrium as we tighten up, and the direction that this equilibrium breaks on ETH BTC is going to be very important. If you are trading Ethereum, sometime probably within the next week, still possible we tighten up for another few days, but you're watching that very closely. It's almost like an affirmer, right? So I got a Ethereum uptrend. Is ETH BTC affirming and giving me more confidence by doing what it should or not? So if I'm bullish, I have to ensure that ETH BTC breaks this sideways range bull if I'm going to have confidence that ETH can get another leg up. And the next resistance zone that we would be looking at on ETH after, there's a tough one right here, up to 28.55. So again, look at this level. This is the level over the last bunch of years. You wouldn't know it, like 2,800, okay, who cares? But big time support, we lose it, resistance, we're under it, resistance, we're back above it, try and hold it, fail, reject. This is the level going all the way back over a year. And so in an ideal world, Bitcoin gets over 28.55 to try and turn this resistance zone back into support, and ETH BTC breaks to a higher high. And the dominance chart sets a weekly lower high. That is, you lay out the ideal scenario, and then if you get your ideal scenario, you can be more aggressive in terms of position sizing. Maybe you let the trade play out longer. If you get the less than ideal scenario, maybe use a little bit less of a position. Maybe you're a bit quicker to take a little profit and lower your cost basis to be more in control of the trade. So I would suggest having a piece of paper next to your computer and writing down what your ideal scenario is. Because I just laid out 3 things. I need to check all 3 of those things that need to happen for full steam ahead for the ETH bulls. And if I only check 2 or only check 1, I know, okay, maybe a little bit more cautious than I otherwise would be. But that break's coming mid-June, earlier June, soon, a week, within a week. We will see both ETH and ETH BTC break this sideways range. And again, there are clues to be had where bulls hope this is the same thing. Sideways, hold support, little higher low, and then obviously the big volume spike was the go signal. We're in a wider range right now. We're not nearly as tight, so I wouldn't expect as significant of follow through when it does break, but it is holding supports, and that's good. It reminds me of Tesla. And we went into Tesla. What is different about this versus this? And the answer was nothing. And so we got a leg up. Granted, that leg up did not see nearly the same follow through, but it told us it was bullish consolidation. And so that is what ETH is currently doing. It's doing the same kind of consolidation that the bulls just benefited from last time around. So let's summarize. I just said a lot of things. We want if you're bullish, you want NASDAQ to hit a new high on the futures time frame. We've got to be watching that resistance. So that's in play the next 2 days. You want to see, if you're looking at altcoins like ETH, you want to see the dominance chart set a weekly lower high, and you want to see the BTC pairing break resistance with the US dollar pairing. And of course, if you're bullish anything in crypto, you want to see Bitcoin continue to defend 103,000 and fend off weekly consolidation. Personally, me not being in an aggressive trading mindset in the crypto space, I am cautious here because of that Bitcoin weekly chart. Again, for me, if I go long and then we start weekly consolidation, I'd feel a bit silly. Like, well, duh, we just went straight up 50% plus for 7 weeks in a row. So I am staying a bit more conservative while feeling things out a little bit. I don't love that Bitcoin has relative weakness to the NASDAQ. Again, it's being helped, but we are still weaker. So you just need to determine, it's always nice when you got some profits where it's, all right, I'm just risking profits, where personally, I'll be a little bit more willing to go aggressive if that is the case. Last thing I want to do is go red. Let's say I'm up $5,000 over the last 2 weeks. Okay, I'll risk $3,000 to be a little bit more aggressive on the long side. And if I'm wrong, still got some green. That's a mindset that I often will adopt to try and coax myself into being a little bit more aggressive. But again, with where I stand right now, I will struggle to be aggressive Bitcoin. For me, it's almost like when weekly consolidation begins and I have a new key level, it's like a sigh of relief. Okay, great. Now I can base all of my trade game plans off that new higher low, that new support level. And at this point, you're doing it off 103 if you're establishing short-term game plans. But again, if you're looking at a weekly chart, it's hard to be comfortable without a recent nearby support. Other altcoins, QNT gets an honorable mention. This is just a textbook in terms of resistance into support. So you've got resistance, top of the bounce, pull back, hold EMA 12, bull break. And then it's support, 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 continuation. Great. Now, resistance, support, support, and heading back to, it's just a perfect chart showing resistance, breaks, we consolidate, we hold the back test, and then we eventually, we hold the back test, we trade sideways for a while, we digest it, and then we attempt continuation. And so while this daily consolidation was going on for QNT, I'm looking around at all the other altcoins, so many names in daily downtrends, pulling back for 3 weeks in a row. QNT, we're just looking for a daily higher low. We've got EMA 12 as support. We end up with hourly oversold, not pinpointing the bottom. We did get one more lower low, but a base of support. We had a double bottom. So it wasn't a back burner, but we double bottomed and then broke resistance. And so QNT looks better than the vast majority of alts on its daily chart. And again, we got our support zone. We know where our resistance is, up at 120. And it's a zone 120 to 124s. That's the last major battle level before all-time highs. Again, you just draw this range where we were just back and forth, support and resistance, chopping around. It came back into play, resistance, resistance, now support. And we've got that trench overhead that is the next major resistance level. But that's a strong daily chart. And again, there's a handful of alts out there that have that, but tons of them don't. SUI, very clear daily downtrend for weeks. BNB's holding on a little bit better. It's a bit choppy for me. But again, you go down the list. ADA dropped to the lowest level in over a month. So the majority of altcoins are in clear daily downtrends, and we are just looking for daily lower highs to be the result of the current bounce. So again, this has been the case for trading crypto all of the last year. So you've got to be really selective with your altcoin longs. And again, the biggest differentiator between prior cycles is this is how picky you need to be back then. Close your eyes and throw the dart. You win. Obviously, a very different market environment right now that requires you being picky if you're going to choose the right bull, because there's, it's 1 out of every 10 at the most. CRV has a very important base of support trying to hold. That's definitely worth paying attention to. 62 to 64. Again, bulls are just hoping, give me a big enough bounce where we've got the space for a daily high or low once we top out. But if you lose that base of support on a name like CRV, there's a significant shift. That's a monthly lower high. And then we just have a monthly equilibrium to be watching. And you've got names like XRP where we are very close to setting a monthly lower high. If Bitcoin doesn't enter weekly consolidation, XRP is not likely to confirm a monthly lower high. But we got close there. We got down within 3% of the monthly lower high officially being set. I'm sure some of the weaker coins are setting monthly lower highs. They're all just barely. SHIB, ADA, not yet. TRX, some relative strength there. TRX has been doing its own thing. But again, another one, if you're looking long, you really want to see the resistance levels turn into support. That's the most glaring sign of progress of a trend. So on whatever name you're interested in, if you break a key resistance and then you fall right back through it, it's a red flag. You got to hold the back test. All right, reading the chat room. Thanks for the likes and shares and stuff. Advice on taking profit and moving stop loss during day trading. I will revisit that in just a moment. I'm going to go through the other ones. That's an in-depth answer, and I will answer it, but that'll be the last thing I answer before we cut the stream. So I'll get back to that. Daily head and shoulders. For me, the potential daily head and shoulders is more clear on Ethereum, just in terms of, a good-looking pattern. So what the head and shoulders pattern tells you is a change from an uptrend to a downtrend. Higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs. Lower high, lower low. That's the right shoulder. So I wouldn't, if I'm looking at the daily chart, I know you're looking at this, but we already got the information that a head and shoulders would tell us. We already confirmed the daily downtrend. So for me, viewing that as a potential head and shoulders is almost like we're going to ignore the information the bears already told us. So we are in a daily downtrend. That information was given to us at 106.5 thousand. We're now back testing. Oh, there we go. So again, the exact opposite of what I just said. If bears are going to prove to us that they have control now, previous support must act as resistance. And it is initially. The question is going to be, does it remain resistance? And then we have our key support level. So I care much less about the shape of the pattern because, again, we've already got the information that we are looking for on that pattern. What we can say is $100,000 is key support. 106 is short-term resistance. And those are the two levels we care most about for now. So, would I say it's not a head and shoulders? No, I would just say we already got the information that the head and shoulders would be showing us. With all the good news, Bitcoin shouldn't need any help. Yeah, you can adopt that mindset. Oftentimes, news can help be a puzzle piece. You know, something is crushed and you get bad news and we don't drop much more. It's a sign of bear exhaustion. And so if you're getting a bunch of good news and you're not really responding to it to the upside, it could be a sign of bull exhaustion. Again, it's just one little data point. We got to combine it with a lot of other things, but it is a factor you can be paying attention to. Recently having success with 30-minute super stack and the back burner. Glad to hear it. I honestly don't use either of those alerts on the 30-minute time frame. So appreciate that insight. Glad to have you in the chat room. Your head will stop spinning. It's a ton of information, but again, you get used to using Slack. You settle in a little bit. I promise things will become more clear. And again, feel free to utilize asking questions. That's why we're there. What's up, Chris? Thanks, Inti Farino, for smashing the like. Campo Adri, thank you, thank you. Nice rising volume on ETH. That's a good point. It is nice. I always check multiple exchanges, pretty much Coinbase and Binance. I want confirmation. Is that correct? Is that what we were seeing? Okay, it is increasing a little bit on Binance. Let's do Tether just in case. Not as much. It's a thing where, you know, if I'm looking at a stock and I'm looking at NASDAQ data, that's it. That's all I need. That's the volume. But obviously with volume being dispersed to different platforms, we do need to ensure, because oftentimes you'll see volume increasing on one platform and decreasing on another. So you just want to ensure that it's the same information across multiple sources. Thanks, Justin and Dawn. Bittenzor. I don't know that one. Oh, Tau. See, my brain works in tickers and stock symbols more than names. That's why I say ETH. People say, nobody says ETH. Why don't you say ETH? Because I don't type ETH. When I look at the chart, I type ETH. I never like a pump and dump. That's a pump and dump. So, now what? Bulls got to form a 12-hour higher low here. If we're going to form a 12-hour higher low, what do we need? We need an hourly trend change back to the bulls. All right, let's go to the hourly. Just got a lower low with no follow through. I can draw a downtrending line if I want here as a bit of a visual guide. So what I would want to see, if bulls are going to prove to me that a 12-hour higher low is shaping up, is I want a big enough bounce to create an hourly inverse head and shoulders. I want to see bulls bounce 50% retracement of what we just dropped. I assume we need a 15-minute uptrend. So, again, I'm just going zoomed out, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. We need a 15-minute uptrend to confirm for the hourly bounce to be underway. And then we need enough follow through to create the space where we can then confirm an hourly uptrend to set a 12-hour higher low. And if all that happens, we then look for a 12-hour lower high to be the result of that bounce. But I now know exactly what needs to happen if that's going to play out. 15-minute trend change to the bulls, give the hourly bounce some follow through, create the space for an hourly trend change attempt eventually to try and shape up a 12-hour higher low. And so similar to where you're writing the checklist of these are all the ideal things that I need, To be all systems go, that's what I would need to be. That's what I need to see one time frame at a time. This has to happen on the 15-minute, then this has to happen on the hourly if the 12-hour is going to do this. Bit of a pullback in the NASDAQ. Hourly consolidation underway. Maybe a headline. Big enough 5-minute candle. Let me check real quick. Nope, don't see anything. So what's Bitcoin doing while the NASDAQ sees a solid drop? Seeing it as well. So again, the relative weakness has been in play for the last 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So if the NASDAQ is going to give us a 12-hour lower high, Bitcoin is not positioned well for that. But at this point, still just a healthy hourly uptrend on the NASDAQ. No major red flags. Again, it's just not a comfortable spot for Bitcoin bulls, knowing that any weakness in the NASDAQ is essentially being magnified today. All right, back to the chat. Bitcoin did start moving inverse to the NASDAQ for 2 hours. Doing the same thing on the morning, 11:30, things shifted. Red EMA is EMA 12, blue is 26. I care much more about 12. I use 12 100 times more than 26. Why do I have 26 on my charts? I pay attention to crosses. That's really it. It's almost like my MACD substitute. You get the MACD cross. I get the EMA cross. But in terms of watching support and resistance, it's just the 12. Kempo likes the swing report. Glad you like it. That's definitely stock focused. Lamont is a stud. Wolf. What's up from Portugal? Isn't it WULF? Which one is it? Now I'm second guessing myself. Just let me know. It's this one. You want to know how I know it's that one? Because its chart looks like the other miners. WULF. Someone's confused. It's either me or you. Thank you, Justin. This is the miner. WULF is the crypto miner stock. No, I'm not looking at WOLF. Is that a crypto stock? All right. Am I using leverage? No. I've never used leverage in crypto, ever. I do not think the only people that should be using leverage are people that are at a bare minimum 3 years, probably more like 5 years into their trading journey, and have proven consistency to themselves and discipline. Because the easiest way, I mean, I have times, again, trading 15 years, I have times where I will break a rule and a loss will be bigger than I anticipate. And if I spiral and go on tilt, then obviously leverage can blow you up. The safety net for that is you only put a dollar amount on the account where, you know, the account blows up, you don't ruin your life. But as I've said in the past, I don't use leverage on crypto, and I never have, and was able to make thousands of percent just because 2017 insanity, when things were running thousands of percent and you didn't need leverage. It is a different environment. Bitcoin's not going to run thousands of percent ever again. Maybe if you zoom out years and years, sure. But in terms of a year, 6 months, no, those are done. You cannot do that with the size of the market cap and the amount of liquidity that it currently has. You have to have low liquidity to run thousands of percent. So, again, the vast majority of people that would ask me, should I use leverage? My answer is no. You got to be in a select group of people that have proven they know what they're doing and have discipline. If I would say, okay, I feel comfortable with you using leverage. Yeah, with EMAs 20 versus 26, that's just a little bit of an earlier signal question. Yeah, the stocks I'm checking are crypto stocks. Yeah, Justin sharing his experience of bad news leverage. I'm trying to think of an analogy. It would be like, how many people would you trust with a firearm when they have alcohol in their systems? There are not many. But you give me an Army veteran who went on 2 tours and he's a bit buzzed, I'm okay with that. Maybe that's not a good example, but you get the idea. A very tiny, tiny portion of the population. Honestly, what has happened is these prop firms are changing the game. And in my opinion, in a mostly negative way for 95%, but for the 5% who are extremely disciplined, it's a great tool. But how they make their money is people just blowing up constantly and paying to do these evaluations and failing by them putting crazy rules and restrictions on them to ensure that you fail the evaluation. All right, we're going back to advice on taking profit, moving stop loss during day trading. So I've got a video for that. I'll post this first. Chart guys, scale out. Look at those azaleas. I'm going to be looking at an analogy. Azaleas. So watch that video later. Very quick one. But essentially what the video says is I want to be taking an initial bit of profit on early resistance to then give myself some breathing room. I then take a second third of my profit at my target, and then the last third, the other side has to force me out of the trade. So what I mean by that is, let's say I'm in a swing position for Bitcoin and we're in a 4-hour uptrend. I've got to see a loss of the 4-hour uptrend if I'm going to exit my final position. It's the other side having to prove to me, bears have to prove to me something is shifting if you're going to make me exit my runner position. But for your specific example, Sol opened on Monday, early morning. So good timing for the entry. Monday was the 2nd, so yesterday. Okay, let's go back to the entry. Monday early. So right around here, we held the low. Took a little while to get going, but we did finally confirm an hourly uptrend. Nice follow through. Stop is under 159. So yeah, I like that, leaving wiggle room. I mean, the support levels, 159.57 here on Coinbase. You use the psychological number, give a little wiggle room, stop under 159. That's all fine. Again, for me personally, my style is I'm more prone to taking profit a little bit sooner. So I would have been either exiting some at this resistance or in hourly overbought. But if I had a runner, yeah, I'd be using that level, because if that level breaks, we then have lots of space for an hourly lower high. In the back of my mind, I know a daily lower high is the most likely result of this bounce. So I definitely want to be protective of my profit so I don't give it all back because the daily lower high forms and then we're back to where I entered. So yeah, that looks like you're doing everything fine. You're walking, if you're using the hourly, you're walking up a stop at support, it holds, and you just walk it up with each hourly high or low. If the supports are close to each other like this is real close, if we were to hold 160, I would just leave it under the lower of the two levels. I don't want to put a stop. Let's just say we set an hourly high or low. I don't want to put a stop at 159.99. We break 160, but we hold the other level 159, and then I stopped out right at support. So I do leave it below the lower of the two close by levels. But yeah, looks like you got the concept down. Thanks for the suggestion, Eric. Honestly, I don't use cross as much at all. I'll use the cross when it's something like we haven't seen a bull cross of these EMAs in 3 months, and then it does it for the first time, and then I pay attention. But really all it is, you would just be getting that signal slightly sooner. That means there'll be slightly more fake outs, but it's such a minimal aspect of my analysis that, if you ask me, you're looking at my chart, what is the least important thing on your chart? That's what it is. Volume's way more important. RSI way more important for me. Price obviously way more important. Awesome, Chris. Glad to hear. Taking some partial profits quick. Again, it's conservative versus aggressive. If I'm an aggressive mindset and I'm trying to level up and we're in a raging bull market, I don't want to be taking profits too quick. If I'm in a conservative mindset and I want my mistakes to be break-even stops or tiny reds, then I do want to be taking partial profit fairly quickly. So that's going to depend on where I'm at as an individual and a trader, and it's also going to depend at what's the market environment. If you're trading altcoins long, you're definitely wanting to take some partial profit a bit sooner. We're not in raging breakout mode where things are running, 10% a day. Glad to help, Gary. All right, thanks for all the likes and such. Again, Bitcoin is weaker than QQQ. If the NASDAQ futures chart sets a 12-hour lower high and tightens up, Bitcoin is likely to head back to test that 103 support level. Bulls really want the NASDAQ to break to a higher high and have Bitcoin head up 107, 108 to create space for a daily higher low attempt. Any trade game plan that you make long at this point needs to factor in the possibility that Bitcoin breaks 103 to finally begin weekly consolidation. We just got to ensure that that doesn't surprise us in the slightest if that happens. All right, appreciate you guys and gals. Do good things. And we'll see you soon.